Greetings, Jonathan Sulzbach here to introduce this episode from the vault of Cinema Filibuster. This episode was originally recorded way back in 2014. I believe we had 3 or 4 failed attempts before we got it right, and I think that dampened my enthusiasm to release the episode to the public, but here it is, more than 5 years later after the fact. Enjoy our blissful ignorance of what was to come, although in Sean's case, he was right on the money with his brain of Morbius insight. So, anyway, no more spoilers. Enjoy. And now, your hosts, Sean Hastings, an author and voice actor with an honorary doctorate in woodwind horn repair. Jonathan Sulzbach, writer, graphic designer, and self-publishing aficionado. Together, these fine fellows form Cinema Filibuster! And welcome to the show. I'm Jonathan Sulzbach.
And I'm Sean Hastings.
Mr. Hastings,
Yes.
What are we talking about on today's podcast?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, especially considering if you didn't ask, I wouldn't be able to answer you. Today we're going to be talking about a little slice of science fiction history, ongoing piece of science fiction history that is very near and dear to my hearts. And that would be, if you couldn't catch that little hint, Doctor Who.
Yes, sir. We're both Doctor Who fans.
Big
Sean's
Doctor
been
fans.
a fan for, well, as long as I've been alive.
2 years longer. No, 2 years longer. I saw Doctor Who 2 years before you were born.
Ooh.
Me lad.
So what we want to do on today's podcast is elaborate on how each of us came to become familiar with the Doctor, and then share what we thought about the 2005 revival of the series, and to maybe talk a little bit about where it is now.
Wow, it's been almost 10 years since it came
Isn't
back.
that crazy?
That freaks me out. Okay. I mean, forget the fact it's been going since 1963. It's the new stuff's 10 years old.
Isn't that crazy?
Makes me feel old.
No. You just have to regenerate.
Just to regenerate, right. I'll regenerate into something else.
Okay, so for those who don't know, the Doctor is a Time Lord from Gallifrey who gallivants through time and space.
Gallifrey, which was in the which is at binary coordinates 10-0-11-00 by 02 from Galactic Zero Center in the constellation of Castorabus.
He has the appearance of a Homo sapien, but he has 2 hearts and the ability, upon near mortal death, to regenerate his entire body. New face, new teeth, new everything.
He has a symbiotic self-renewing cell structure.
But he does retain his memories and pieces of his personality.
Sure. And teeth, apparently, the last 3 times.
Oh, really?
Next, he kept saying, no. No, he did say new teeth. Yeah, he did say new teeth, so he did get new teeth.
It's a mechanism to introduce a new actor into the role, but the Doctor is always the same core being.
Yeah.
But his personality changes with each actor's
Interpretation of the
There you
part.
go.
Sure.
Yeah, each actor brings a new nuance to the Doctor.
Yeah, well, because, nobody wants to be remembered as the guy that came in and did the last guy over again.
Right.
Which is weird because, normally people, when they watch a show like this and they become endeared to a character like this, they want continuity. And you don't get that. But in a weird way you do. It's the weirdest phenomena I've ever seen in terms of changing, just the root. I mean, basically the core of the show gets changed, yet it stays the same. And I guess, I don't know whether to attribute that to, or I don't know whether to credit the writers for that or credit the actors, or maybe a bit of both. Because the show is always different, yet you can take any David Tennant or Matt Smith episode and any Patrick Troughton episode and find corollary. You can put them 2 together and list, that this happens, this, and the qualities and characteristics of the stories, the characters, and everything. And there would be, except for a few deviations and just, plot, you've kind of got you still have the same show.
Yeah, it's about the Doctor going different places and helping out wherever he can.
Yeah.
And usually he travels with a companion or multiple companions. Mm-hmm. He runs into a number of recurring villains, but there are plenty of new ones out there.
Oh, yeah. Every season there's 4 or 5 new ones.
You never know when or where the Doctor will be next.
Nope.
But it's always an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Through time and space.
There was a time he didn't even know. Back in the early days, he just would switch buttons and Oh dear.
It's kind of a roulette. Where will we wind up next?
Where will we wind up next? Although there was a brief time in the Tom Baker era where he was running from the Black Guardian of the Universe, who is the evil. You have two Guardians. You have the White Guardian and the Black Guardian, and they're both kind of the custodians of balance in everything. I mean, these are probably the two most powerful beings that have ever occurred in the Doctor Who universe. They are the two most powerful beings in the Doctor Who universe. And it was in the little stint where the Doctor had to find the 5 pieces, the 5 segments to the key to time. And it was 5 episodes. It was their first kind of a mini series, and it was really kind of cool. And at the end, of course, the things happen, and the Black Guardian is thwarted. But the Black Guardian's looking for him now. So the Black Guardian knows everything. He's sort of like the ultimate telepath. So in order to escape him, he puts something called a randomizer on the coordinates of the TARDIS. So basically he throws a switch and it goes anywhere. He doesn't know where he's going, so the Black Guardian can't find him. And that lasted, I think, almost until the end of Tom Baker's run.
And if I remember correctly, Tom Baker was your first Doctor.
He was.
So elaborate. Take us back through time,
Take us
Sean.
back through time and space.
Regale us with a tale of your first encounter with that being from another planet.
Well, it was 1982. Ronald Reagan was president. E.T. was still fresh in everyone's memory. And I was visiting Denver, Colorado with my brother-in-law and sister. My niece and nephew and I were there. They're close to my... Actually, they're my cousins. Long story. But either way, my cousins were there, and we were watching... we were just kind of flipping through TV, and the first episode of Pyramids of Mars popped up. And I was kind of like, this is kind of interesting. It looks like a... Because I'd already been kind of fan of Hammer films, the Hammer horror films, which is a uniquely British... style of horror film. It started in the 50s, went through the 60s and 70s, and I've always been a huge fan of that style of film. And this had that feel to it. Obviously being a British production, it had a lot of similarity. And this lead character was just so unique, and he was quick, very quick. You could tell there was a huge intelligence working there, and I mean not just subliminally, even the actor, because Tom Baker is quite an intelligent man, and you're just looking at this going, wow. Something about this guy's appealing to me, and I don't know what it is. And I asked my cousins, what is this guy? And they say, oh, this is some stupid show. It's called Doctor Who. He's some kind of an alien or something. I don't know. It's some British show. It sucks. They'd seen a couple, because they'd been up there before, and they'd seen a couple of episodes. And I was just transfixed. And for the rest of... They showed each episode. They showed, all 4 episodes of Pyramids of Mars. And by the end of it, I was just like... because they said he doesn't have any superpowers or anything, so he's kind of dumb. I thought, well, no, he doesn't, but wow, this guy knows what's going on. This guy's on the ball. This guy's got this kind of Sherlock Holmes vibe, and I've always been impressed by characters who acted, who knew what was happening, no matter what was going on in and around them, they knew what was happening. I thought, I like this guy. In fact, of course, I was 12 years old. I was still in my let's play pretend phase. So the instant I got back to Abilene, we would, my friends and I would want to play superhero stuff. Well, I'd want to play the Doctor. I wanted to play Doctor Who, because that's kind of before. I only seen one episode, and I didn't really catch it, and everybody just called him the Doctor. So I want to play Doctor Who. What does he do? Time travel. Shut up. He's smart. And about a year or two later, it finally started showing on the local PBS station. And I just flipped out. I thought, this is great. You guys are going to love this. And I had some of my friends watch it, and they were like, this is dumb. The special effects are terrible. This guy's stupid. And I was the geek outcast in a world of geeks, because everybody liked the cool science fiction, Star Wars, and Star Trek, and Battlestar Galactica.
Because that's not nerdy at all.
No, that stuff's cool. That's that's the chicks dig. The Star Wars and Star Trek. That? They never did. That was just a euphemism for I was on the outs with that crowd.
The fringe of the fringe.
The fringe of the fringe, and for some reason I loved it. I thought, you bet your butt, I love Doctor Who, and I thought I was the only Doctor Who fan in the world, because I thought, thought, and well, nobody likes it. I don't even know why how a TV station over here got it, why they even got it. Because I was sure I was the only person in Texas who had ever heard of Doctor Who even liked it. And
so you could become an expert on the topic and tell people about it, and they would be none the wiser because we're the expert.
Well, yeah. Well, I was, even because I guess it was probably about 86 or so, I started finding there, a guy named Peter Hanning put out these encyclopedic volumes about the history of Doctor Who. There was one called Doctor Who: A Celebration. Then there was the second one was called Doctor Who: A Key to Time, and then Doctor Who something Time and Space. And it's just these thick coffee table books about the history of Doctor Who. And I thought, somebody produced a book about this show? Give it! I would, and I mean, every time the new one came out, I would go down and buy it. These were $20 back in the 80s, so that was 2 weeks worth of my allowance to get these things, but I was just a madman. I would just buy them and read them. So, I ended up being a huge Doctor Who expert in a town full of people that didn't care. So I thought. But as time went on, once I got to high school and the group of, because there were only 2 high schools in my town. So if you were on the north side of the town, you went to Abilene High. If you're on the south side, you went to Cooper. So I went to Abilene High, and of course, every junior high or in the area went there. So are, the plenty of people. And I ended up finding the 2 or 3 other people who were like me, who were the outcasts of the Doctor Who. And, we were just thrilled to meet each other. And then, of course, the PBS station... No, I take it back. The first time it was just a station out of Dallas that got it. The second time it was PBS got it. And they started with Tom Baker's first episode, Robot, and they showed like the first 5 stories all in an afternoon. And I was just... And I'd only seen bits and pieces of the first 5 stories the last time it was shown. And I was just in heaven. And of course, as time went on, we finally got a comic book store in Abilene. And that's when I found out, holy gosh, there's a huge fandom for this. There's conventions for this. And then, of course, the PBS station had a Doctor Who convention that we all got together and drove to Dallas. And I almost met Colin Baker, and the line was too long. Who else was there? It was Colin Baker, and I believe Nicholas Courtney, the Brigadier, was there. But the next year we went, I met Peter Davison, and I met John Levine, the guy that played Sergeant Benton, who was super cool. They were both really nice.
Wow, so you've actually met some of the cast.
Yeah. Nice people, very nice people. Peter Davison's a very quiet fellow, very, very quiet.
Did you get to speak with him?
I did. I walked up and I thought, of course, in my ever growing need to be, witty. Hey, I walked up to him because everybody was just fawning all over him, obviously, because he was, at the time there were only 6 doctors. Sylvester McCoy hadn't even come out, so he was just the last doctor.
Davison was number 5.
Davison was 5. Colin Baker was 6. So there was only 6 doctors at the time. So I walked up to him and I thought I'd make a joke like, I didn't know what's going on. I said, so, and you're Peter who again? What?
Peter
are you again?
Who? Aha.
That's what he thought I meant. And he went, seems like it sometime. Oh, no, that's not what okay, funny, yay. No, he was cool, though. Really nice man. His signature, how stars have their, we commented later on, his autograph looks like it says Peel's Lavasoy. So every time we saw a picture of him, hey, it's the 5th Doctor, Peel's Lavasoy.
Oh, wow.
But still a very nice man. I was very glad to meet him. But anyway, that's my, and of course, then I got out, and found out Doctor Who, like I said, Doctor Who was huge, and then that brought us up to the reboot, but, which I guess is a good segue, so let's, you tell us.
Okay.
Mr. Sulzbach, how did you discover Doctor Who?
Well, Doctor Who is and has been popular long enough, and it's been pervasive enough that even not having a formal introduction to it, I heard whispers of this Doctor Who thing.
Sure.
And by that I mean channel flipping and seeing on PBS this black and white show with wobbly sets.
To be fair.
Questionable acting.
Oh, yeah.
And no explanation. No explanation as to what's going on. You either knew what was going on, or you didn't.
Or you guessed. Correct.
But I remember flipping the channels. This was a long time ago. I didn't grow up with television, but after our parents moved, teenage years, we got basic cable, like channels 1 through, or 2 through 12, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Just would come through. And PBS was one of those. So Doctor Who would be on. I didn't know what it was, but I would flip the channels, see it. I think my mom said, oh, I think that's that British thing, Doctor Who, or something like Doctor Who. What a silly name.
He's stupid.
And you mentioned Hammer. I didn't know about Hammer, but the quality of what I was seeing, some of them must have been in color later seasons. But
sure.
I saw those and thought, oh, this feels very British and very cult-like, sort of.
Yeah.
By that, I just mean like, oh, you either know what it is or you don't.
It's you're either in or you're not. And in a lot of ways in the United States it was. In Britain it was huge.
I didn't pay much attention and just flip away.
Right. And it looked like a soap opera because they shot it on a studio with studio video cameras.
I knew it was British because of the video and the lighting quality. And like,
right.
Even if this is any good, it looks dated and
Sure.
so I just didn't give it the time of day. However, fast forward maybe a decade or so, I don't know. Working as a graphic designer, working on a project for the Amazon Kindle, the team that I was a part of produced a video that played on the device when the device was on display in a store to lure kids and parents over to the device, like, touch here to try this feature, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
There was no audio, but it had lots of graphics circling through, and it was a mock-up of how the device would work. And since it was all about delivering magazines and movies, we, as part of the animation team, had to put content into the video. And so Amazon gave us cover artwork for movies like The Bourne Ultimatum, Dora the Explorer, Doctor Who.
Well.
So I think it was Series 6 was out at the time.
Matt Smith's second, I guess.
The cover art for it, his back is to the audience. It's very dark, but he's got his sonic screwdriver glowing, and it says Doctor Who. And so that was one of the pieces of artwork that I worked with. I'm like, Doctor Who? That sounds like that.
That's that black and white pile of television.
That show's still on the air? Or is it a reboot? Or I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But
with all the reboots that are out, that's a logical assumption.
But that same year, or within a few months of that, I realized as an Amazon, this is not a plug, but as an Amazon Prime subscriber, suddenly I didn't just have free shipping, I had access to content.
Sure.
Movies, music, television shows. Most of which I wouldn't care to watch.
Well, yeah.
Among them was Doctor Who. And I don't know how I found that I was being offered, but it popped up in suggestions because I like science fiction and Stargate. I think I've been watching Stargate recently. So it suggested Doctor Who. And it had cover artwork for Series 1 from 2005 with Eccleston and, what's her name? Billy Piper on the cover, looking off to the distance, sort of amused, but kind of dopey at the same time. Like, what? That doesn't look anything like the guy who was on the other cover. So I knew nothing about the fact that, there are multiple doctors, multiple actors. He's a Time Lord, he regenerates. I knew nothing.
There's a lot to take in when you first hop into this character.
But I didn't have much going on at the time. Come home from work, make food, watch something, or play a game.
And go to sleep.
I had recently moved out of my parents' house, so I was on my own. So
my own.
So I just decided, hey, I'm going to watch this.
Watch this. Good for you. Good for you.
So I watched the very first episode of Series 1, or as we like to say, Volume 2.
Volume 2, Series 1.
Series 1. With obviously Eccleston and Rose, or sorry, the Doctor and Rose.
And Doctor and Rose, yeah.
And I was like, what is this? This is fascinating. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
They seem to be alluding to the fact that this guy's got history. He seems to know what these autons are all about.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever he does, he's been at it for a while. I'm going to give this another go, give it another episode, just to see if it starts to develop.
Right.
Episode 3 comes along, like, well, I'll try another episode and then see.
Episode 3 was Dalek, wasn't it?
I believe. Oh boy, you would have to go and ask that question.
Because episode 2 was the Earth went away, and then I don't remember if episode 3 was Dalek or not.
I think you're right.
because that was, because of course I had, when the light first came on, I went, Doctor. I went, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I was having a little freak spat, going just, oh, it's the Daleks are back. And, so when that thing came up, all the meat, and his reaction, I was like, oh man, this was just huge. Yeah, this was just huge.
Well, you're hitting on the right button, because when I got to that episode, whichever one it was, I don't know if I think I watched them in order. I hope I watched them in order.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I saw that, and I didn't know what a Dalek was.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reference of the Time War, the last of its kind, the Doctor's last, and his reaction's like, whoa, what's happening here? And then Rose somehow gives energy to the Dalek, and it gets free, and one Dalek wipes out one of these silly looking Daleks that can't even go upstairs, and it wipes out this entire...
it wipes out
the
facility, yeah. And the Doctor wasn't kidding, if it, the line that gave me chills, he says, what's the nearest city? Salt Lake City. Dead. All dead. He will systematically kill everything on the surface of this planet, and there's nothing that anyone on the surface of this planet can do about it.
And though I didn't recognize the significance of the way that episode's ending played out, and I won't spoil it, I was nonetheless impressed by the ability to have such a range of feelings for and against Daleks. And after that, I knew, come what may, I was a Doctor Who fan.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's like if somebody told me if I went back in time and talked to myself when I was a 18, 19-year-old, who just, I was at that point, I was buried in Doctor Who, and I looked at myself and said, one day you will weep for a Dalek. No way. That's stupid.
Impossible.
Although I feel like I've been kind of robbed a little bit, because I always thought I had an idea about a Dalek, a single Dalek being inside a bunker, and nobody had anything to stop it, because normally, a good laser to the eye stalk and they're gone, but I always thought in a bunker, mine would be a little bit more horror movie like, but it was like you alone with one Dalek instead of a whole army of them. I always wanted to write that as a story. And behold and lo, they did it, but they did well, so I'm not going to grouse.
That's interesting. As soon as I got latched into the show, it was not long before I wanted to know if other people were watching it.
Oh.
I needed to know.
Are you alone?
Am I alone? Tell me I'm not the last of my kind.
Am I alone in an unfeeling universe?
I don't know if I had met you yet, but shortly after meeting you, I learned that you were a Doctor Who fan. And I was really excited to be able to talk about it,
right, to somebody who...
And you knew so much. You were talking about this doctor and that doctor, and you were using the names of the actors that portrayed them, and I'm like, whoa, slow down.
No, what are you talking about?
I want to catch up. I want to be with you. I want to be on your level, man. So...
Congratulations. I hereby bequeath you to my level. You're up.
But I haven't had that reaction. I was a huge fan of Stargate, and I still love Stargate.
Oh, it's a good show.
I didn't have the desire to know everything about it.
I know. And I don't know what it is about Doctor Who that is that way.
I think it's the way, if I'm guessing, that bits of information are slipped in here and there, a little bit like the way Star Wars did it. There weren't huge explanations about things. There were tidbits that kind of whet your appetite, and you wanted to know more, and they told you more as it pertained to the story. But they don't go out and bog you down with,
no.
And now here's everything you'll ever need to know.
I still want to know what a Gondar is. So if I ever have to rip its ears off, if I have to be strong enough to rip the ears off a Gondar. And I want to know what a nerf is and how they're herded by nerf herders.
So there's something about Doctor Who. But it's so different from Star Wars or even Star Trek, because it really is about this character, the Doctor, who wants to help people. And like you said, he doesn't have superpowers.
No.
He doesn't generally carry a weapon.
No, he's got a screwdriver. He doesn't have a weapon. He has a screwdriver.
And he's got a brain.
And he a very impressive brain.
And empathy. So between his wits and his witticisms, he's just fascinating to watch. And you assume he's going to get out of every scrape, but you never know how. And that's what makes it fascinating.
Well, every once in a while, they refer to him as the lonely god. And in a lot of ways, and that's another thing I like kind of about the dichotomy of a Time Lord. Time Lords are just as frail and fallible as any of us. You put a bullet through their head, they're dead.
Exactly.
But, it's the wrath of a Time Lord is nothing to trifle with. at all. I mean, you remember the episode where he tried to hide, and at the very end, one of them was imprisoned as a scarecrow, one of them was put into him. I mean, don't mess with this man. Do not mess with him. In fact, the line that Matt Smith once said was where it's the episode where they see him killed, by the spaceman, and then the younger version. Oh, sorry, spoilers, sweetie. Well, and when he shows up, and of course they think, oh no, and he shows up as his younger self, and they're not telling you, you're not telling me something, and he says, don't play games with me, don't ever think you're capable of that, and that's just some little kind of taste of, it's good that he's a good man. It's good that he has a sense of justice and fair play, because I have a feeling the universe would be in trouble if he wasn't.
Righteous judgment.
Righteous judgment. Yep. Don't play games with me. Sorry, it gives me chills every time I think about it.
Okay, so approaching the 2005 revitalization of the show.
Revitalization.
What was going on in your mind? Because you hadn't seen or heard of Doctor Who anything
not since 1996, I believe it was, when Paul McGann's very, very ill-fated Fox movie came out, which was... It was a little oasis in the. It wasn't a very good movie. Bless their hearts, they tried, but
there hadn't been any Who for how long?
Oh, good grief, since 1988
or
89. Yeah, so it was well over 6 years since we had any Doctor Who, any new Doctor Who, and it was, it's like, hey, and we were thinking this might be a revitalization for the series, although I was really concerned about an American company getting a hold of it, because Doctor Who works with a British sensibility, not with an American sensibility, and you couldn't do an American series like that, and obviously, because they kind of made it...
focus would change.
Yeah, and but they did at least keep it canon, in that it was a continuation. They got, Sylvester McCoy to reprise his role. And the actor that they got was outstanding. Paul McGann is an incredible actor, great voice, just a really fantastic Doctor, and I'm still bereaved that we don't... And I'm hoping one day, if we have another multi-Doctor special, they get him back, because I would, even though he's done quite a few audio adventures, I would dearly love to see him get more time to shine, because I think he would have been one of my favorites if he could have gotten a bit of a run. But that was it. That's all we had. And it was not very good. And in a way I was relieved, because I thought, well, now maybe America's not going to get their hands on it. And if it ever comes back again, in fact, but of course once 2000 rolled around, I thought, no, my friend Kevin and I discussed it at length. We thought it was dead. He said it might come back, in 70 years. Somebody will look back and go, hey, this is something cool. We might could try again, but reboot it and start over. And Doctor Who, as we knew it, was dead. Well, all of a sudden, coming soon, Doctor Who. And we didn't know if it was a reboot or not. We saw this Doctor Who, played by Christopher Eccleston. And Kevin said, who? And I said, you remember the villain from 28 Days Later, the lieutenant who was kind of nuts? Yeah, him. Went... okay, he's got an interesting look, and then I saw his picture and thought, oh God, he's a football hooligan. He's got a leather jacket. I thought, oh, he's gonna be the new, tough, punch people in the kidneys doctor who, grabs the women by the back of the hair and sticks his tongue down their mouth and says, I'm the doctor. I thought, oh God, it's gonna.
No wonder you were terrified.
I was a little terrified, because they're playing with my hero, and the Doctor has always been and always will be my hero. And of course, it comes out, and we don't get it in Abilene because we don't have BBC or anything, but Sci-Fi Channel ended up finally getting it, so Kevin and I are in front of the TV. All right.
So you watched the premiere.
We watched the premiere on Sci-Fi Channel. Okay. We didn't watch we thought, all right. And we were over at our friend Lori's house. It was kind of like, okay, you can use my cable, because neither one of us had it, so we used her cable. Thank you, Lori. And we watched the whole episode. And of course, I'm the Doctor, run for your life. I thought, okay, all right. I dig that. That's nice. That's got that playfulness to him. And when I saw the mannequins come alive, I thought, those are autons. Yes, I know what these are. And I thought, okay, I said, I still didn't know, because, well, they're autons. They may not be the same one. And then, of course, he goes in, and this writhing blob of crap is the Nestines, which was from John Pertwee's first episode. Of course, this was computer-generated writhing crap instead of a trash bag filled with Jell-O writhing crap going up against a window. And then he starts throwing all of this new stuff, against the, I couldn't save any of them. Yours was the first planet to go. I thought somebody destroyed the home planet of the Nestines. That's Major League. Why isn't somebody doing so? Why aren't the Time Lords doing something about this? And then he threw down the Shadow Proclamation. Whoa!
When I heard that, I was like, I want to know what that is.
What is? I did too. I'm like, I've never heard of you heard of the Shadow. And he looked at me. He says, "You're asking me?" And we go, "No, I don't know what the Shadow Proclamation is. Is that something? No, I can just turn on Shadow and watch the movie." We kept talking about it, and finally, by the end of it, I said, "Okay, I'll give him another shot." That was good. Then the next episode, and I said, I'll tell you what, it is good, and I will like it. I think I have decided that if they're all like this, I will like the show. If this is a continuation, I'm going to love it. If it's a reboot, I'll like it. But it'll lose some of the glamour
history,
for
the
me.
gravitas.
It would lose a lot, and I will just like it. Even though the actual content isn't going to change, it's still, there's my Doctor Who and this Doctor Who is kind of how I was going to look at it. And then, of course, the next episode you find out, it's intimated that he's the last of his kind, and went, what happened to what? And I can't remember what the final clue was that clued me in, that finally said, no, this is a continuation. I can't remember when it was, because it was a while into it. And when I said, and Kevin said, this is the continuation. This is the 11th Doctor. This is not Doctor number 1. In fact, they started calling him the 11th Doctor, and I thought... Ninth, sorry. Yeah, blank. Started calling him...
Finally, I have out-hooed.
You did me. You got me. But yeah, when I found out that this was a continuation, and then, well, like you said, then the episode Dalek happened. I went, whoa, I want to know what this Time War thing was, and I want to know why the Daleks were having a time, because the Daleks, the Time Lords were the oldest species in the universe. Well, second or third oldest. They were one of the oldest species in the universe, and the Daleks were still fairly new. How did they were never a match for the Time Lords. Nobody was a match for them. The Time Lords snapped their finger and you vanished. They moved entire constellations. They moved groups of stars across the galaxy. Of course, apparently, with the Daleks can now too, but they would mention in a Colin Baker episode that the Time Lords had a machine called the Magnetron that could move planets and stuff. And now all of a sudden, in the episode of the Missing Earth, we find out that the Daleks have their own Magnetron and are moving planets.
It's interesting you say this, because in the William Hartnell, that would be the first Doctor, even in his series way back in '63, the Daleks had time travel capabilities.
Yes, they did.
And they pursued the Doctor.
Through time. Yep, they did. They could do time displacement all the way back then.
So while they may not be Time Lords, the technology is ultimately what gives the Time Lord power.
Yeah.
You take that away,
and they're not. Yeah,
they have a regeneration thing. But what else do they have?
Well, they have a unique a perception of time. There was an episode.
I agree there are differences.
Well, there was an episode of Jon Pertwee where somebody was trying to invent a time machine, and it was making time skip jumps, and nobody noticed it but him. Time would suddenly boop, and 3 minutes pass in a second. And he'd go, "What just happened?" And everybody's, "What? What are you talking about?" Because he can sense time in ways that we can't, and that's just because he's traversed time so much. Daleks don't. They only use it as a means to an end. And some Daleks never time travel, but. But yeah, eventually their technology, obviously caught up to them. And at first I was hesitant because I've always thought of the Time Lords as kind of you don't touch them. They are up on their throne. You don't mess with them. Nobody. The Centaurans have invaded Gallifrey and they've been kicked off. You don't mess with them. And then all of a sudden have the Daleks come along and be able to, I was kind of like, that seems a little far-fetched. But as the show went along and the story became ingrained, I thought, well, you know what? I think that's good, though. It's good that if anyone was going to do it, it'd be the Daleks, because the Daleks...
they're relentless.
They're relentless, and if they decide they want to take out the Time Lords, they're going to keep inventing new machines. See, the Time Lords tend to be a little... Okay, we've reached the pinnacle and we're just going to sit here. They tend to be very lethargic and atrophy. They don't do anything. They just look. And the Daleks are active. They're taking over. They're fighting different people, compensating for stuff. So the Daleks are growing. The Time Lords are just sitting here. So it kind of fits that the Daleks got big enough to take on the biggest boys on the block.
Boy. Well, as of right now, Series 8... of Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, we're about to see the new one.
Some of it's been filmed, some of it may be ongoing, but August 23rd, 2014.
Yeah.
I believe that's the correct date.
I think so, yeah.
Doctor Who Series 8, Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor?
Yep. Well, technically it's the 13th. Well, see, there was a lot of controversy about that. In fact, I've been a part of a couple of internet threads about where people were arguing what number the Doctors were. And apparently, according to Matt Smith's Doctor, when David Tennant was shot by the Dalek and blasted all of his regeneration energy into the hand that grew into the other David Tennant, that counted as a regeneration because he was dying. But he siphoned off, he had a place to send the overabundance of energy that changed you. He just had enough to heal, and then he sent the rest of it out. So technically that was a regeneration. So technically David Tennant is it would be the 10th and 11th Doctor.
I think common perception is that Capaldi is Doctor number 12.
Right. Except he said, in the 50th anniversary when, the ending's happening and everybody, and he says, oh God, now I've got to deal with 12 of them. And then Capaldi comes in, no sir, 13, and throws a switch.
But I don't believe Capaldi said that. That was another Time Lord.
No, that was Capaldi.
I'm pretty sure. We may have to watch.
We'll have to see that.
This is my ploy to watch it again.
I see. Well, at least it's not some ploy to watch it again. That I would at least. What did you say over there a second ago? Far be it from. No, yeah, it's. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Do you know how hard it is to get me to watch an episode of Doctor Who? Hey, why don't we watch a movie? Doctor Who? Doctor Who? Okay, Sean, we'll watch an episode of Doctor Who. Great, let's watch Doctor Who!
Could you say that you have a favorite Doctor these days?
These days, no. There was a time when Tom Baker was my favorite Doctor because he was the first one I ever saw. And I do like his portrayal because his portrayal is one of the most unique portrayals of a character, not just the Doctor, but he's just such a quirky bohemian. He's really an interesting character, who is probably a good deal of it is what Tom Baker, because every actor says they put a little bit of themselves. Patrick Troughton's Doctor is a little bit Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, and so forth and so on. So. He was my favorite, and I'm still partial to his. I love his performance. I mean, they all do a fantastic job. In fact, that's always the thing that has saved the show a lot of times is through good and bad episodes, they've always picked good actors to play the part.
I seem to feel that depending on which Doctor I'm watching, that Doctor becomes my temporary favorite, or
that
the
happens,
one.
Yeah.
I find myself, if I'm watching a Hartnell episode, I'll look around on the web of different episodes, threads, like, does anybody like the first Doctor? And if I'm watching a Tennant episode, like, where's the love for Tennant, So,
right.
My focus hops around. It's all the same character, but the different portrayals. And I so far have not met a Doctor that I didn't like.
No,
Each one brings something new. In the classic Who, I'm up to the point in continuity where a first episode of Troughton, it's a reconstruction of the episode, parts of it were lost.
Sure.
But all the audio's there. And so, yes, I finally said farewell, Hartnell.
Yeah. His regeneration was very anticlimactic. He just falls over.
Yeah.
He say his body's getting a bit worn out.
His final episode, or 4 episodes, deal with the Cybermen, but the Doctor's involvement is almost non-important. He's just there.
Because because Hartnell was in such bad health.
He falls ill partway through an episode. He sleeps through most of the next one. And he shows back up on there's a bunker, blah, blah, blah.
Bunker.
Anyway, he pops back up on the scene, raring to go. And then he collapses once he's inside the TARDIS. Before that, he says something to the effect that this body is wearing a bit thin. And that's really the only clue that you get as to what's happening to that guy.
Yeah.
And then when he regenerates with Patrick Troughton's second Doctor, his companions don't know what's going on, and he doesn't.
Neither is anybody watching the show at this point.
And he doesn't answer their question of, "Are you the doctor?" He just goes rummaging around asking questions about the doctor, as if he's not the doctor. And he finds the doctor's 500-year diary and starts thumbing through it. Just plays a little bit on his recorder, and it's like, who is this guy?
Well, it's because you get scrambled a little bit when you regenerate, so he didn't,
But it's very interesting, and even though these are old black and white reconstructions of missing episodes, I'm still interested. That's the fervor, the level of devotion I have for this show.
And it's the quality of the stories. I mean, if you can look past special effects, which is the sign of an intelligent person.
Oh golly, we're patting our own backs.
We are. Well, no, I mean, and it is. I am taking a shot at the people who didn't like the bad special effects because they were special effect hookers. They didn't go for the stuff. They didn't. Hookers. They didn't want the story was less important to them than the Flash, and I'm sorry, that doesn't impress me. If you can look past it and see the good story, but that's and again, I shouldn't be that down on it because the story is just my end of it. Because being a writer, that's what it means to me.
I think you and I are tuned into the story. We're willing to look beyond because we always think of, okay, what was this guy thinking when he sat down and wrote this story?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and one thing though, back to our little controversy about the numbering of the Doctors. Technically, there's an episode of Tom Baker's. It's called The Brain of Morbius. Where Morbius is a Time Lord who was, in fact, the Sisterhood of Karn. If you'll remember them, that's the episode. That's the episode that they're in. That they are a reference back to. When I saw that little mini episode, I was like, "That's the Sisterhood. He's on Karn. Yo, I know where this place is." Well, the Morbius was executed, and apparently this evil scientist took his brain and is keeping it alive in a jar, and was going to. This was in a time when Doctor Who was really being a Hammer. They were going after that Hammer horror feel because this was blatantly a Frankenstein story, but it was a good one. And this guy was constructing this body to put Morbius's brain into, and then Morbius can come back and he's a Time Lord, go rule the universe or whatever. Well, the body looks like absolute just, butcher material. It's like it's leftover stuff. But it's lungs from a creature that can breathe cyanide. It's stomach of a creature that can eat dirt. And he's made this. It looks like crap, but it functions very well, and he can survive in orbit or he can survive on any environment in this body. Well, he eventually comes to his senses, and the Doctor challenges him to a game of Time Lord wrestling, where there's this apparatus where one gets in one end, one gets in the other, and these little electrodes go into your head, and you kind of fight brain power-wise. And in the middle, there's this little kind of coalescent special effect where apparently the whole thing is to regress your opponent back to youth or something. So the Doctor's got Morbius's face and he's pushing Morbius back through his regenerations, but then Morbius kind of takes over, and then it's a picture of Tom Baker, who's, of course, it's a different picture of him, and then it lap dissolves to John Pertwee, and then it goes back to Patrick Troughton, and then it goes back to William Hartnell, then it goes back to some other guy, then it goes back to another guy,
Sean.
Goes back to another guy.
Heresy!
5 regenerations
I don't
before
believe it.
William Hartnell.
No.
I'm sorry to tell you. 5 regenerations before William Hartnell. And see, that's what I got in when I got into the middle of that, these guys arguing about which Doctor he was. I said, well, technically, guys, he's the 17th.
You're that guy, Sean.
I'm that guy. Because according to that episode, there were 5 Doctors before William Hartnell, and of course the guy was saying, no, that was probably Morbius. No, according to the way the story was going, Morbius is winning, the Doctor's getting shoved back in time. It is not Morbius. You can't argue that because it doesn't fit with what's happening in the story. The writer wouldn't be that sloppy because the rest of the episode's too good. So they're 5. So
I'll have to see this episode for myself and determine the accuracy of your
okay,
statements.
that's why I encourage that. But so yeah.
Another excuse to watch some Doctor Who.
Absolutely, I need to get Brain of Morbius. I don't have that episode. I need to. But like I was saying, Matt Smith is actually the 17th Doctor, I think. So Capaldi's going to be the 18th or something like that. But basically, I think we can count that as swept under the rug. We're not.
Probably.
We're just gonna not deal with that because I don't even know if Peter Moffat knows about it.
In the same way that the master is no longer the half brother of the Doctor, and the Doctor is no longer half human or whatever.
Yeah, that I didn't care for that.
Certain things just kind of get swept away.
Yeah, and as they should be, because certain things don't fit the story, and continuity-wise, we can just ignore them.
Right. But if they were decided to bring back little tidbits like that, who knows?
They might be able to work it into it, yeah. Okay. Well, my friend Kevin and I have always tried to theorize who the Doctor really is, and we think, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, this is just speculation on our part. Okay. You know, I've even gone as far as to thinking, and of course, actually, they put this to rest. I was thinking that the Doctor might actually be Rassilon himself, who escaped, confinement, get to Gallifrey, lived a life, and then left. But no, because we've seen Rassilon exists independently of the Doctor, and they've been in the same room together.
Right.
As Timothy Dalton.
Clark Kent, Superman.
Exactly.
Obviously not the same guy.
Of course, that's actually, that anybody who's listening is going, stupid. There's been two Doctors in the same room before. So it could be. And I go, okay. That's...
Oh, you make an interesting point, Mr. Hastings.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out who the woman was who was kneeling next to Rassilon in the in Tennant's last episode, because I've heard people say it might be Susan. Heard people say it might be Romana. Some people say it might be the Doctor's wife. I don't know.
It's interesting. I don't want to elaborate on that because I have some ideas, but I have to reference some episodes that I most recently just rewatched, and that would take us on a new tangent.
Gotcha, all right, yeah.
But suffice it to say, this is more information than most aspiring Whovians would ever need to know. But
we dig a little too deeply, I think.
We are passionate about this.
We are.
And we like to share our passions with our listeners.
Absolutely.
And hopefully they appreciate it.
I think they do, because they're a good bunch of people. Look at them out there. They have bright eyes, intelligent faces.
Are there any attractive ones?
Oh, tons of them. Look out there. Look at them all. Wow. All you ladies.
We're not going to turn the podcast into a dating service?
Not yet.
Unless there are some... Never mind.
Okay. Until they at least see a picture of us first. Well, me. You're actually... John's a pretty good-looking guy.
John's a pretty good-looking guy.
Oh, I was at one point in life, I think. Well, when I was John's age.
Maybe you'll regenerate into
Maybe. Regenerate into something.
Well, thanks, folks, for listening to the Cinema Filibuster.
Absolutely.
We'll probably have a future episode where we talk about each Doctor and give a little bit background.
Yeah, do an episode dedicated to each one, because each one is just filled. Each actor and each each rendition of the Doctor is filled with such with history, and the actors who played them are all really interesting people. So we think you will enjoy that.
Well, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave some comments. Mm-hmm. If you are listening to this on our podcast feed, also leave some comments.
Please do.
We'd love to hear from you. And
Absolutely.
We may quote your questions or your statements in upcoming podcasts.
Mm-hmm. And send us your favorite quotes. If there's a Doctor Who quote like the one I have that gave me chills, I want to hear those, because movie quotes are, kind of one of our things.
And if you already know who your favorite Doctor is, let us know that too.
And why.
Especially why.
Oh, absolutely why. Because you can't just pick a favorite and then say he's my favorite without a reason, because that's just posturing.
And we don't posture here.
We don't posture.
We slouch.
We slouch.
All right, folks. Once again, I am Jonathan Sulzbach.
And I am Sean Hastings.
Adios.
Color us gone.
And now, the credits. Intro music by Matt Steiner. Outro music by Enrique Dibb. Show concept and creation by Sean Hastings and Jonathan Sulzbach. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Thanks for listening.